I feel spoiled rotten. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Celebration. That was beautiful. I'd rather be spoiled sweet. So how'd our homework assignment go from last week? Well, yeah, C minus, A plus. So now, I wonder if there's a graceful grading category for those of us with ADD that it's like it slips out and it's like, oh. I failed miserably this morning. We have a tradition that whoever makes breakfast and whoever does the talk, the other person will make breakfast. So I get to do the talk. So Kristen made breakfast this morning, and she made some eggs, and I'm off down on it doing something. She says, "Your eggs are getting cold." And I said, "Your eggs are getting old." But I have a diagnosis. I know. I'll talk to you later. Jiminy Cricket over here. Oh, forgive me, every female. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Okay, let's move on to this week. We're doing Faith and Love out of the Butterworth book. Okay, I'm back. All right. You know, can anybody escape the presence of God? No, you just can't do it. But in our century, what are we centered on? Are we centered on a timely joke or that presence, that power? You know, when we're in the presence, the characteristic nature of God just kind of radiates. It's like we ate a whole bunch of garlic last night. It just kind of goes out from us. We can't help it. But spending time in the presence, we just radiate love and can't help but have faith, peace. And the more time we're in that presence, the more peaceful we become. Eventually, the qualities and characteristics of God displace the ego. Makes sense, right? So what do we occupy ourselves with? I like to think metaphors, you know, and y'all know, remember plant biology, the medulla of a leaf or a plant? The medulla is that main river that brings all the nutrition, all the nutrients. And when we're centered, we're in the medulla of spirit. And it's like, I see a visual image, you know, when they're in the transporter room, when their whole body kind of digitizes, and you know, every now and then you get into a high vibration and you just feel like your body is just woo. And so I just kind of see that, and then the presence radiates out. And it's like whether or not we're in an artery or in a capillary, we're still on our journey. But my favorite metaphor is the river. You know, we're either in the center of the rapids or we're off in an eddy. We're still on the journey, but we're either not going somewhere or we are going somewhere. And we get to choose moment by moment whether we're moving forward or just hanging out. It's cool. And you know what? There's times when we need the eddy. We need a breather. We've unloaded a whole bunch of karmic stuff and we need a break, you know. I don't know if you believe in karma. I do. I think I'm the result of my karma. But there's some accompanying way cool stuff that happens when we're really centered and following the divine guidance of the divine. And silly little things sometimes, but really cool. When I first got to Unity Village, I was just so happy bouncing off the walls, and there was a golf course. There's a 9-hole golf course at Unity Village. And I was playing around with two other seminary students who are now reverends, Stan McNeese and Michael Corpan, Florida and Chicago. And so we're golfing, and Stan's got this yellow ball, and there's a few leaves on the ground that are yellow, and his ball keeps going off into the yellow leaves, and he's having a real hard time finding his ball. And so I'm about to hit the ball, and I said, Stan, what you need is a hot pink ball. And so I hit the ball, and my ball usually always fades or slices. And this time, 1 out of 1,000, it hooked to the edge of the fairway and into the rough, about 1 foot into the rough. I get there, I bend over to pick up my ball, and within 10 inches, what do you think I found? Hot pink golf ball. Hey, Stan. Hilarious. I think the Spirit's got a sense of humor. I really do. I love the way cool stuff. It just gives us little nuggets that, yeah, we're in the divine flow. When ordinarily we turn left instead of going right. I did that once. There was a detour, and I met a lifelong friend by taking a detour. And I saw like a Shelby Cobra replica in the front yard. I'm a hot rod guy, so I pull in, and lifelong friends from a detour. Anyhow, I won't bore you with details, but I just love how we never know where we're going to go. When we're flowing down a river, we're going to go this way around the rock or this way, and we enjoy the ride. Amen? I woke up in the middle of the night, and I wrote this down. God, because I don't trust you, I'm going to employ this playbook called Survival Strategy for Dummies, which is the ego. And when we feel disconnected, and that's really what it is, when we feel disconnected, we feel we need strategies to survive. And, humor, for me, I learned really young. Because when I was a young child, my old man was a rager, and he wouldn't think, he would just kind of hit. But my middle brother was so funny, he made Dad laugh. And Dad, when he was laughing, wouldn't hit him. And so I'm like, humor. Humor's good. So that became a survival strategy to not get hit. And so the ego is very sophisticated and learns things. And sometimes the ego is quicker than I can think, clearly. So. Lack of faith could show up a lot of different ways. I used to invest in real estate. Now, I was busy in my life, and it was a time in my life, it's probably one of the real lowest parts of my life as far as being disconnected from spirit. Living high off the hog, just boom, 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 boom. Busy life, boom, 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 boom. And I would look at a real estate deal, and if it penciled, I'd buy it. And I had these friends that they were just centered and calm. And they would look at a real estate purchase and they would pray on it and sit with it at least overnight. And when they both felt really good about it, then they'd pull the trigger. Well, they're gazillionaires now from being in alignment and not being impetuous like I was, listening to the numbers. I can't tell you how many times I've been, replacing floor joists and fixing things, and that had I listened to Spirit, I wouldn't have gone down the rabbit hole. Or investments that look so good, and then you end up losing it on them. So Spirit always has the highest good in mind. May we always surrender to that highest good and not listen to the impetuousness of the ego or of our anxiousness, whatever it is. Anyhow, I think after a while, when we've been in this arena of the communion, the relationship with the divine within us, it transcends faith and it becomes a knowingness. Like when you sit on the bench, it's going to support you. You just know it. And that kind of strong faith happens in a communion with the divine that we develop in our devotional practices. All right, I want to move into love. Love is not a verb. It's not a compensation for doing something. It's not conditional. Conditional love isn't really love. Love is a divine quality that can never be earned and it can never be lost. It's a level of consciousness. It's a zip code. When you're in it, it's like being in a hot tub. You can feel love, can you not? It's a divine quality. It's eternal. It's everlasting. I remember years ago, I was just Johnny Christian, and I sit down with a Buddhist and a Hindu, and we start talking about our devotional practices. And every time I ever met a Hindu, I just feel the hot tub, I just know they're there, And we sat down, we go through our devotional practices, and I'm like, we're the same. We're just the same. We got different words. And I've come to learn that you cannot offend God. You can't offend God, no matter what name we use. Higher power, higher self, the big S, whatever. It's all God. And so as we relax and swim in these waters, love becomes more and more dominant. The people that live, according to Hawkins' research, the people that live that are dominated by love, only 4% of the world's population live in that zip code. Can you believe it? Unity is in that zip code. And so unity is working at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of need. You understand that, right? And so many times we felt led. Okay, I'll tell you a story about a mentor of mine, Phil Pearson. Phil and Dorothy Pearson had a massive TV show. Their Nielsen ratings, I think, exceeded the rest of the movement for a while there. They were huge. And Phil told me, he says, one guy was asking him for money one day. And he said, what I have to offer is consciousness. If I give you money, it's not going to change your life at all. But what I can give you can change your life. And he talked to him for a little bit about the experience of the presence, the Holy Spirit right here, right now. And he said, you can change your life. You decide. And a couple months later, that gentleman came back and thanked Phil up and down. And Phil told me, because he changed his life. He totally changed his life. He got him going. And the guy thanked him for not giving him any money that day. Phil said, you know what? Let the mega churches feed the homeless. What we have is consciousness. No, I'm not here to tell people to not help the homeless. That's not what I'm here for. Discern what's the highest good to do. A week or two ago, Vicki Dill, who runs a homeless ministry, says she never gives money to the homeless. She'll give food, she'll give personal care, hygiene items, or she'll give information. She'll tell them that, did you know that your children, even if you have to move, in Texas, the busing system will get you to your child's school so they never have to change schools throughout the year. So that kind of information is liberating to a homeless person that's down on their, having one of their valleys in their life. So love can be expressed not always as we assume, but it can be expressed in different ways when we listen to Spirit. What's ours to do? I would hope that we'd never feel guilted into doing an act, otherwise to assuage our guilt, because that means the ego is motivating us. But be centered a moment and say, what's ours to do? Because we can placate somebody for a moment and it keeps them down, like Reverend Phil Pearson told me. Or we can liberate somebody with the truth and change their life. So discern from Spirit, what's ours to do? What's ours to do? Remember, we're only 4% of the world's population lives. That's the energy level of unity. That's why when you walk into a unity church, you feel two things. You feel love and you feel acceptance. Amen? That's our culture here. And it's not that way in the rest of the world. So what we have is transformative. Don't want to waste anybody's time with information. Man, folks show up for Sunday. We want to get together. There's this synergistic momentum that we have. We want to change our lives. As we do an act of love, whatever it is, in one small corner of the world, it ripples throughout the entire universe. That is the truth. Muscle test, that is strong. Y'all are more powerful than you know. Because in this energy level of love, it's way, way more powerful than guilt. That there's so many filters between, in that map of consciousness, and I'll get back to Butterworth in a minute. 6 minutes. But there's clarity. The clouds are parting when we're in this zip code. But in the areas of shame and guilt, they're so clouded over they can barely see any light at all. It's just layers and layers and layers of ego. Amen? Okay. Let's fast forward. We have all these obstacles in our life that would distract us from our higher self, from love. And the Buddha called them attachments and aversions, the things that we got to have and the things we certainly don't want. And if we're obsessing over these things, there's no homeostasis. We're always pulling, pushing, striving. But it's taking us away from our center to allow us to be in that presence where faith becomes rock solid and love naturally radiates. It puts us in a place of grasping. So ask yourself the question when you feel like you're grasping, is this worth giving up the presence of God? The experience of the presence of God is available and within every soul at all times. It simply awaits our choice. But to get there, to experience that, we need to surrender those attachments and aversions. So it's a constant process of letting go that which no longer serves us. It's like a daily, hourly burning bowl ceremony. We're constantly letting go. Amen? Butterworth, okay. This is a quote. If you feel a sense of ingratitude over the fact that someone doesn't seem to return or reciprocate your love, then you really didn't love. You were bartering. You were looking for attention. You were looking for something in him or her. And that's a hard lesson. But it's the kind of lesson that is implicit in the consciousness of truth. I've attended codependent meetings for a number of years to help me not to try to get people to like me, because that's ego. If you try to like people, Butterworth's got another great quote here. Never try to love anyone. Remember, love is not getting or giving something, but it's being something. When we're being love, we don't have to do. I love the difference between power and force that Hawkins talks about. Power doesn't do anything. It just radiates. It just radiates energy. When you're around that power, when you're around a person that's loving consciousness, you feel it. A forceful person is like a parasite that has to steal energy, like an energy vampire, from that which is powerful. In my prayer compilation daily, I try to let go of these juice traps that I see myself reaching for juice. And I let go ego's addiction to the payoff from comfort, validation, respect, appreciation, or love from another. I release all grasping without and dissolve into Christ within. I am nurtured by spirit and all life-affirming creation. That puts me in a place of homeostasis, where I can just sit and be and allow that presence to come up through me. Butterworth said how important it is for us to love. Here's a quote. The point is, love your enemy, not because he or she deserves it, but because you deserve it. When we're holding animosity towards somebody, we're literally holding our breath until they pass out. It's insane. Somebody used to tell me, "You drive me crazy." And I said, "It's a short drive." So we choose constantly, whether we're in a mud puddle or a hot tub. We can be in whatever energy we choose to be in by just simply letting it go. If somebody steps on your toe, let it go. Bless them, honor them, let it go. Choose to be in love. You know, when something happens and we're really hurting, it's okay to be with that and allow the anger to boil up. Just don't say anything. And sit with it for a while until it dissipates. And then when it dissipates, you know, you release it. But if you don't process it, it'll just fester. So let it sit until you can pull out the sliver. And then choose love. Choose to bless. Amen. Namaste.
Thank you for joining us today. If you like the message, we invite you to like it or share it. And we also want to let you know that we're on Instagram, Twitter, and we'll see you again next Sunday on Facebook at 11:25.
We're a New Thought church where lives are transformed. And we welcome you to check us out. Check out our website, unityhills.org. We'll see you next week.
Namaste.